Right in the heart of Paris, there's this waterway that's so much more than just a pretty spot for a walk. We're talking about the Canal Saint-Martin. With its iconic iron bridges and leafy banks, it's got this whole story, a 200-year-old history that's literally hidden just below the surface.
So today, that's what we're doing. We're going to peel back the layers of this canal and see what's really going on. We'll get into its cinematic soul, dredge up some of the absolutely bizarre treasures found in its depths, and look at how its past is actually shaping the future of Paris. All right, let's dive in.
So, to really get a handle on the canal, you have to go right back to the start. Back to a time when Paris was, frankly, desperate for fresh water.
So Napoleon had this grand plan to fix the city's water problems. And by 1825, it worked. The Canal Saint-Martin was reality. But what's really wild is how fast things changed. Just a few decades later, during this massive citywide renovation, they covered up a whole 2-kilometer section of it, just paved right over it to build a big fancy boulevard. And just like that, a chunk of the canal disappeared, becoming this secret river flowing right under the streets of Paris.
But, okay, the parts of the canal that they didn't bury, well, they started to take on a life of their own. A kind of mystique, really. And it's a mystique that would end up being immortalized on the big screen. So in 1938, a film called Hôtel du Nord just perfectly captured the whole vibe of the canal. There's this one single line of dialogue just spit out by the actress Arletty on a footbridge, and it changed everything. The canal wasn't just a location anymore. It was a mood, a feeling. It was an atmosphere. The movie was this incredible example of a style called poetic realism. It was all about finding the sort of lyrical beauty in the grit of everyday, working-class life. And the Canal Saint-Martin, with its industrial roots and kind of melancholy charm, it was the perfect stage. That atmosphere was everything that cinematic world was about.
And this is where the story gets even better. It really shows you the power of film. Decades later, the actual real-life Hôtel du Nord was set to be demolished. But movie lovers and Parisians protested. They rallied together and fought to save it. So the movie literally saved the real building. The fiction preserved the reality.
But the canal's most amazing secrets aren't in the movies. No, they're lying at the bottom of the canal itself. And they only come to light when Paris decides it's time to, well, pull the plug.
Every 10 to 15 years or so, they drain the canal for a deep clean. And back in 2001 alone, workers pulled out 40 tons of debris. That's 40 metric tons of history, trash, and just lost things. It begs the question, right? How in the world do you drain a canal in the middle of a city like Paris?
Well, as you can imagine, it is a massive job. First, they seal it off. Then, they slowly drain 90,000 cubic meters of water. To put that in perspective, that's like 90 million cartons of milk. They even have a whole system to rescue the wildlife, about 5 tons of fish, before they start the 3-month cleaning process. And the stuff they find down there? Wow, it's quite a list.
Over the years, the canal bed has turned up this incredible, bizarre cross-section of Paris life. Can you imagine sifting through that mud and finding actual artillery shells from World War I? Or gold coins? Even empty safes that just hint at some old, forgotten crime story? But it's not all ancient history. The canal's become this graveyard for modern stuff too. Motorcycles, hundreds of those Vélib city bikes, wheelchairs, shopping carts. It's truly a muddy museum of everything Paris has ever used, lost, or just wanted to get rid of.
But here's the thing. The canal isn't just a time capsule. Today, it's more alive than ever. It's totally transformed from an industrial waterway or a movie set into the living, breathing heart of a really vibrant neighborhood.
I saw a post on Reddit where a user, afraid_cell621, just nailed it. They said, the charm is the people watching and the pace of life. And that's so true. On a sunny day, the banks are just packed. It's where you go to hang out, have a drink with friends, and just watch the world go by at a slightly slower speed.
And there's this one stretch in particular, from République to Stalingrad, that's become a real hotspot. You'll see these old industrial barges that used to haul goods. They're now floating bars and live music venues. Old warehouses have become little bistros. The whole area has flipped from a place of work to a place of play.
So when you step back and look at it, the canal has always been like an artery for Paris. First it moved water, then goods, and now culture. But what's next? Well, its next job might just be its most important one ever. Napoleon's whole vision was about public health, giving Parisians clean drinking water. Now, 200 years later, Paris is taking his creation and using it to fight a totally new public health crisis, climate change. The canal's original purpose is being completely reimagined for our times.
As summers in the city get hotter and hotter, Paris is looking at its waterways as a kind of natural air conditioning. The canal and all the green space around it are being officially called cool islands, places where people can find refuge from really dangerous urban heat. This old piece of infrastructure is now a key player in the city's modern plan to be resilient to climate change.
From a water source to a film icon and now to a climate solution, the Canal Saint-Martin has just kept reinventing itself. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden stories and secret potential are flowing right under our feet in our own cities, just waiting for us to look beneath the surface?